Hi, I'm Joel Reynolds with the Natural Resources Defense Council. Down the Pacific coast of Baja California is an extraordinary place called Laguna San Ignacio, a World Heritage Site, a biosphere reserve, a whale sanctuary, a migratory bird sanctuary, and the last place on Earth where gray whales can breed and calve undisturbed by human intrusion. It's the wrong place to put the world's largest industrial saltworks. And yet in 1994, that's exactly what Mitsubishi Corporation, together with the Mexican government, had in mind. But El Grupo de los 100 had another idea. It formed an environmental coalition in Mexico of some 35 groups. It recruited some of the largest environmental organizations in the United States, and it initiated what would become the largest environmental campaign in history. This video is a brief reminiscence of that amazing campaign.
NBC 7.
39.
First News at 4.
There is a battle being fought in Baja California over a little lagoon called San Ignacio.
Now a company jointly owned by Mitsubishi and the Mexican government wants to build the world's largest salt-making facility there. Environmentalists say that's unacceptable because that's the last pristine birthing spot for the gray whale.
And the winner takes all. This lagoon is one of a kind, and once it has been developed, there will be no chance to turn back the clock.
The Baja California Peninsula of northwestern Mexico extends over 1,200 kilometers from the U.S. border. In the very middle of the peninsula are the vast tidal flats known as Laguna San Ignacio, a World Heritage Site and an environment that has hardly changed since ancient times. But what makes this place so special is the gray whale. Laguna San Ignacio is one of the gray whale's last remaining breeding grounds. The gray whales of Laguna San Ignacio have a unique characteristic that is found nowhere else in the world. They are very friendly toward human beings. Whales will often approach a boat and play for 20 to 30 minutes off its bows. Extraordinary scenes like this take place every January through April when whales come to give birth here at Laguna San Ignacio. The dry climate and natural environment make it ideal for the gray whale, but also for salt making. In 1994, a joint Mitsubishi-Mexican venture called ESA started seeking approval from the Mexican government to build one of the world's largest salt production facilities, with projected annual production of 7 million tons. But if completed, 116 square miles around the lagoon would be covered by evaporating ponds high in salt concentration, an area the size of San Francisco, California. The project met with protests from Mexican environmentalists as soon as it was unveiled. Then, around 1996, the campaign against the saltworks gained global momentum when environmental groups from the United States joined in.
People can simply, after being at Laguna San Ignacio, can't believe that anyone or any company would be interested in defiling or degrading it.
To site the salt plant in the midst of this biosphere reserve would make a mockery of the whole concept of environmental protection in Mexico.
How much more salt does the world need? I mean, are we talking about a matter of life and death here for the human population? Absolutely not.
It would be totally incongruous, not to mention illegal, for the very same Mexican government that gave Vizcaíno and Laguna San Ignacio the levels of protection that it now enjoys, to at the same time authorize the Mitsubishi Saltworks proposal for San Ignacio.
One of the reasons environmentalists were so concerned is that in 1998, a large number of endangered sea turtles were found dead on beaches north of Laguna San Ignacio. The Mexican government determined that the deaths were caused by a sudden increase in salt concentration in the seawater following the draining of wastewater from Mitsubishi's existing saltworks 100 kilometers to the north at Guerrero Negro.
Although they will claim that their environmental record is wonderful and that the whales and other species have developed beautifully around their salt facility, the record shows otherwise.
What had been a controversy became one of the fiercest environmental battles in recent years. In July 1999, a full-page ad appeared in the New York Times. It was signed by 34 prominent scientists united in their opposition to the Laguna San Ignacio saltworks project proposed by Mitsubishi. It was an impressive list that included 9 Nobel laureates.
I think it was a very clever tactic. Again, the public doesn't look beyond when they see the name of 34 prominent scientists and 9 Nobel laureates. You know, I guess what astonished me is that scientists normally believe in the scientific method, believe in evaluating evidence and coming to a conclusion. Most of those scientists are not marine biologists.
One of the strategies of Mitsubishi was to attempt to get this whole argument down to scientific grounds, because then you can have, you know, our scientists and their scientists type of situation. And I thought nothing could be more important than to hear from scientists the fact that this is not a scientific argument. This is a very simple argument. Simply, is it correct to build the world's largest salt plant in the middle of a quadruply protected area? And the answer is no.
In September 1999, the word boycott appeared in several major newspapers, including the New York Times. The environmental groups had launched a Don't Buy Mitsubishi campaign.
They weren't hearing concerns of citizens, environmentalists, of international scientists, and that the only thing they seemed to understand was sort of the economic pressure.
The environmentalists intensified their campaign against Mitsubishi, enlisting the help of a number of Hollywood movie stars. Pierce Brosnan, star of the James Bond movies, was among them.
You know, there's one thing I do like, and that's a good fight. And this is a good fight, and I don't like to lose. And I believe in my heart we're not going to lose this fight against Mitsubishi.
In October 1999, the environmental groups hit where it really hurts. They asked U.S. mutual funds to stop investing in Mitsubishi.
We're here today to announce a strategy of market opposition to Mitsubishi Corporation to try to pressure that corporation to end its plans.
This project makes no sense in any respect, economically, environmentally, spiritually, morally, legally, and it ought to be abandoned. That's what this press conference is about.
As a result of this appeal, 14 firms with total assets amounting to $14 billion agreed not to invest in Mitsubishi.
Threaten a life, and it's assault. Unless the victims are whales, then it's just business.
Thinking about buying a Mitsubishi product?
In California, there were TV ads targeting Mitsubishi cars and other products, and a Mitsubishi bank. In the end, over 40 local governments and labor unions in California pledged their support to the campaign, a campaign of intensifying opposition from local communities at the lagoon to organizations, governments, and citizens around the world. Finally, on March 2nd, 2000, the saltworks project was abandoned. Mexican President Zedillo, bowing to public opinion, abruptly announced its cancellation. The president said the cancellation had nothing to do with the environment or the whales, but that the project would spoil the landscape. Meanwhile, in San Diego, California, the environmental groups were claiming a major victory.
It's a monumental occasion that we're gathered here to talk about, and one that we've been waiting and struggling 5 years to announce. It's a tremendous victory for the environmental movement. It's a tremendous victory for humanity.
The environmental groups received an enthusiastic reception from local communities at the lagoon. Robert Kennedy Jr. gave a rousing speech.
6 years ago, people in this community began a battle to fight Mitsubishi. Many people said that it's impossible to fight them because they're the biggest company on the face of the earth. You've opened the eyes of the world to the fact that if citizens stand together, they can stand up against the most powerful forces of globalization. Adios.
I think the environmental groups are very effective in getting their message out. And I think corporations, including ours, have to do a better job.
But more important is that people have to speak out. People have to understand that remote areas like this are important for the heritage of this world and for people to take action.
This was an amazing victory for international citizen action, but the story doesn't end there. In 2005, the Laguna San Ignacio Conservation Alliance was formed. The goal of the alliance is permanent protection of this extraordinary place to prevent the return of any proposal like the Mitsubishi saltworks factory. Over the last several years, we've protected some 140,000 acres around the lagoon and secured additional protection on 109,000 acres of federal land. Over the next 5 years, we hope to conserve 250,000 acres around the lagoon. And if this effort is successful, we will have protected not just the natural resources of Laguna San Ignacio, but secured a sustainable economic future for all of the communities around it.